Good morning.
Hello, 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 hello.
Sweet to see you here, sister. Welcome. Yes, welcome, welcome. So today is episode 183 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And let's see, what day is today? Today is February 5th. So welcome to those who have been here for a while, those who are returning. As you can tell, 183 episodes. I've been doing this for a long time. Let me welcome my brother here. So glad to have you join us again, sweet brother. And of course, others will show up as it's time for them to show up. So today we are going to continue with lesson 77, which we started last week. And it's really interesting to watch the world because the Course in Miracles says that we create the world that we see. It's a reflection of who we are. Hey, brother, good to see you. And if
Whoops.
we want the world to change, then we have to change ourselves. We are the change we want to see in the world. And A Course in Miracles is very clear on how to change yourself. And you change yourself by training your mind to think truths about you instead of what is not true. And just as last week, I was at here in my sister's house, and the previous week I was in Susie's house. Um, so I'm continuing my 30-day tour away from the snow, although it did follow me to Destin. But that was just to give me the opportunity to practice what I teach. Could I be at peace with the snow that I was trying to get away from? Yes, we were at peace with it and enjoyed it, and it was short-lived because thankfully it warmed up pretty quickly and melted away. And actually, a couple days ago, I was on the beach, New Smyrna Beach, not New Smyrna, Vero Beach is where I was for a few days. I was doing a private workshop that was amazing. My gosh, the transformations that took place this past weekend with a couple of my clients, very, very intimate workshop was just incredible. I thank you, God, that you chose to incarnate as Laina, because this is so much fun. It is so much fun being me. I love being me. And today we're going to continue in lesson 77. I am entitled to miracles. And this follows what we spent quite a few days studying, which was lesson 76, that says that I am under no laws but God's. You cannot understand why you're entitled to miracles if you don't understand God's laws. And God's laws basically say they're very simple. I have broken them down many times, but they're very simple. You can summarize them. Everything is one. God is in everything we see because God is everything that we see, including us. So if everything is one, it is permanent. It's not going to go away. So if you have a body and the body does complete its journey, if it does come to it has its what is it called? The milk has an expiration by date. If your body expires, then it is not who you are. Because if God is one, if God is eternal, then you are not a body. You have a body to have an experience. God is experiencing life as Laina. I cannot be believing that this is who I am and experience miracles. If this is who I am, I'm going to experience suffering because I'm going to be worried about how I look and how long I'm going to be here and what can I get and how can I make it better. And, this is mine. It goes away, then I'm going to suffer. I cannot be this thing that suffers and know God's laws. To know God's laws is to truly understand what God is attempting to accomplish here. And it's very simple. God is attempting to accomplish the expansion of what it is. And God is, we've given a name that for a long time I couldn't say the word God. But once I did my work, once I left the God of the church and I found the God of A Course in Miracles, that journey allowed me to return to my relationship with God. And it was really, at first, I had to train my mind to understand God as God really is. Then I had to open up my heart to receive what God is. And God is this intelligence, is this infinite knowingness that continues to expand through you and me. See, as we are humans on this planet, and as there are other beings, because we've got to get really, really clear, we're not the only ones here. God is infinite. To think that this is all there is a very arrogant statement from our ego. God is infinite. There is an infinity of potentials for what God can express itself as. And when you understand that each and every one of us, through our life experiences, we see what's happening through the contrast. We know what we don't want, and then we can choose what we do want. Because we're creators of our reality, we expand the kingdom through that process of contrast. In this third dimension, the contrast is very, very drastic, because here we are furthest away from God. We are furthest away from the light. We have built so many layers and blocked the truth that we have created incredible shadow. If I start putting, piece of cardboard after piece of cardboard after piece of cardboard above me, eventually I'm just lost inside of this dark little space, and that's my reality. The journey of awakening is to remove those pieces of cardboard, like we remove beliefs that don't serve us, through contrast. Do I want it this dark? And every time we remove a piece of cardboard, it just lightens up a little bit and lightens up a little bit and lightens up a little bit, until I don't need all that cardboard. I don't need all those things blocking me. So we are training our mind to just embrace the observing of the things that make us uncomfortable. When you can look at what makes you uncomfortable, you now are recognizing, oh, I just felt that anger. I just felt that judgment. I just felt this old pain and wound and trauma from when I was a kid. And I'm doing it with the guidance of the Course in Miracles. And the Course in Miracles is training my mind to welcome those old beliefs, to bring up those emotional discomforts. And those of us who are reading the book, The Untethered Soul, those are called samskaras. These are old wounds. These are old emotional pockets that couldn't be looked at before, because the mind wasn't trained to think with God. So we stuffed them, like that Dr. Seuss book that I was reading to my grandson not too long ago. We have pockets in our pockets. Our pockets are filled with these heavy weights that don't serve us. In truth, they're inside of us. But, the walk it in my pocket, it was fun listening or reading that with my grandson Ryder and going, that's exactly what we've done. We have to bring out what is in these pockets of energy that are stored within us, that are stuck. Course in Miracles is training our minds for a couple of things. One, to get super, super honest. God's laws are these, ego's laws are these. I don't have my chart with me right here, so I can't show it to you. But when I show the chart of the yin and yang sign, maybe there is a song. One side has the God's laws, the world that we create if we are thinking rightly with God. On the other side has the world that we experience with the ego. The world of the ego includes lies, because it's blocks. It's saying this is reality, so that's a lie, because it is not acknowledging the truth. That is, we are the light of God. The ego operates in death, because the body is what it values, and it's going to die. So death is what creates the fear that we have acknowledged. And so what are we trained in the egoic world? We are trained into believing that he who dies with the most toys wins. In other words, he who dies or she who dies with the most money succeeded the best, because this is a world of money has become the ruler. We worship money more than we worship God. And if we worship God wrongly, because we don't understand what God really is, or where God really is. Even though Jesus told us God is within, because the kingdom is in here and God's in the kingdom, it doesn't acknowledge the power that we have granted to us by God, because we don't read We don't understand. We don't practice. We don't learn the laws of gods. We learn the laws man wrote about God. And when you're studying the laws that man wrote about God, they are going to be projections of man's thoughts according to the ego. You have to humble yourself incredibly to be able to share what God says. You cannot be operating in separation, thinking you're special, because then you don't understand that we're one. So in oneness, even as a human, when you recognize oneness, you're in this world, but you're not of it. And you're not of it because you promote that which unites. You cannot be greedy. Everything is done in service to the greater good. Ego does everything in service to itself. That's why greed is part of that world that the ego has created. And if we don't understand that we are powerful creators, we're creating unconsciously. This is why we have to wake up, is because we're using our superpowers to create what we don't want. But it is that contrast that if we look at it and we're like done with suffering, why do I keep attracting the same person? They have different faces, but it's the same experience. Why do I keep attracting the same uncomfortable situations with work? I keep changing jobs, but it seems like I always have the same experience. Well, because those samskaras, those wounds within us are getting activated with each situation because they take us to the level of consciousness that we're at. You can't get out of the samskaras if you don't take them out of yourself. You can't leave. That's why so many people turn their back on what is affecting them, but it's like a puppet on a string. You're getting run by the strings that are pulling you back into old behaviors, which many of you, what you've heard me say. That's why we look at specifically politicians, movie stars, celebrities that are on the world stage, and we say, oh my goodness, they're acting like a 8-year-old. Well, it could be a 50-year-old person acting like an 8-year-old, because when those samskaras get activated, those irritations are invitations. If your mind has been trained, you know that you are only going to free yourself if you sit with the discomfort. If you're listening to the ego saying, oh, no, let's go away. Let's get distracted. Let's numb this pain. Ego doesn't want you to see what hurts you because that's what feeds it. That's the only thing that keeps the ego alive, is being right about what hurts me. But we don't know that it hurts us because we think that it has kept us safe. And technically, it has kept us safe in the third dimension. But do you want to stay in the third dimension and stay safe in the third dimension for the rest of eternity, when you can just as easily free yourself while you're in this body, while you're in this human experience, and move out of those lies and cheating and pain and suffering and greed? You can let go of that. Move into a higher consciousness, a higher dimension of consciousness. And by higher, I don't mean up, I mean expanded. You can see them more clearly, see more the way God sees the world. So we have been given all of the tools that we need. They're all there. To me, the most powerful tool is A Course in Miracles. And if you can train your mind to think, first to learn the truth about God, because it takes quite a while to embody it, to practice it, to be it. But we start with training our mind. So you have to be curious enough to open your mind to other ideas about God. Once you open your mind to other ideas about God and you accept them, now you're not arguing with what God is, then begins the work of opening up your heart so that then you can be the expression of God in form, so that you can know that you are God. You're not the God, but you are an expression of God. And it's like, it'd be foolish to say that I am the sun, because I'm not. Sun, S-U-N. But every one of us is a ray of the sun. So we are the light as much as God is light. So what we're accepting is the truth of who we are. If I am the light of the world, I am the vessel through which this light gets expressed. But we cannot express this light to extend the kingdom because we have covered it up. We have put layers, you can call it, the cardboards that I was using, but really every one of those is just a belief that keeps me ignorant of the truth of who I am. And here's the amazing thing. And this is one of the things that I'm so excited about what's happening in the world out there right now, is that those who understood that we are creators of reality, they know this, and they have risen to positions of power over millennia, have deliberately kept us from knowing the truth of who we are by distracting us with nonsense so that we could continue to use our light to create on their behalf. Because in the world of greed, in the world of the ego, there is greed. And if we can keep people from knowing who they really are, I mean, if we were to take all the little children from the time that they are pretty much born and let them know that their job is just to be little slaves, this is the way that it works. And we put them all in a place with a wall around them, and we told them, okay, your job is just, to till the ground. You're just going to be a cotton picker forever and a cotton planter. And we put them there. They don't know any different. And that is their reality till they die. If they see people growing old, picking cotton, and that's all that they do, and more are born, and that's all we would believe that that's our reality. So in essence, we have been put in this world. No, we chose to be in this world, but we have been deliberately bamboozled by those who know how powerful we are, that we do desire through contrast to make things better. And then we've been given a money system that says, well, you can't do anything if you don't have money. All of that is made up, by the way. God didn't create money. If God created money, then we would have money everywhere. Like God created apple trees, we would have money trees, truly would have that. Now, there's nothing wrong with money, but when we use it without awareness of God's laws, it gets used to create suffering. It gets used to create separation. When you use it in service to the greater good, it does nothing but good. So we have to recognize that first, our mind has been conditioned into believing that we are less than what we are. Those who conditioned us, and listen, I have long forgiven those who conditioned them, because I had to take responsibility for my willingness to pull out of the matrix. I had to accept that I am not part of that game. I'm not part of the game that believes God is on a cloud somewhere. I'm not part of the game that believes that I've got to work like a slave and send my money to the government and then they decide what to do. I'm not part of the game that says that the medical institution knows about healing more than God does. I became very clear what God's laws are, trained my mind first, accepted them, because if you don't accept them in your mind, the heart doesn't feel safe to open. Then you begin to little by little practice these laws, and you realize, whoa, being outside of this prison, it feels so much better. Not caring what people think about me. Truly, I do not care what a human thinks about me, because they're all projected out there. They have no power over me. So the freedom to live my life as I want to live it, but because I live it under God's laws, I'll never hurt anybody. I'll never go out of my way to hurt a brother or sister, or even to use words to put them down, because when we are studying the Course in Miracles and we come upon the honesty as a characteristic of a teacher of God, it means consistency. What you think about, what you say, what you do, all of them have to be congruent. And when the mind is trained to have loving thoughts and the heart is open to be love, you're not going to go out there and hurt anybody, because to hurt somebody, you got to shrink yourself first. You've got to hurt somebody, you've got to first hurt yourself. So once you understand these things, then you are free. Because then you recognize you have a courage. God can use you to do greater things than Jesus did. When you no longer care about what anybody thinks about you, you recognize that you are completely, totally okay with a statement made by many of give me liberty or give me death. You recognize I'm okay. You can sacrifice this body. You can shoot this body. You can crucify it, put it on a cross, do whatever you need to do. It doesn't kill what I am. It just ends the temporary experience as Laina, but then I'm like, weepy. I get to be something else again. Now at this higher level of consciousness, I get to be in service. Jesus is doing that for us. He showed us that his body is not what mattered. What mattered was getting the message of being the embodiment of love, of forgiving those who didn't know what they were doing because their minds were conditioned by the rulers of that time to make them think that killing other people was somehow okay, that anybody who went against the church was somehow okay, anybody who went against the government was somehow okay. I'm not here to uphold government or churches or anything that goes against God's laws. And if the cost in this world happens to be death, then so be it, because it doesn't end what I am. This is why when you're under no laws but God's, you begin to gain a courage. You begin to gain a consistency, which means an honesty, because you have come to trust the truth that you have been reading, that you have been studying, and that you have been practicing, because that truth has set you free. To experience that level of freedom, then the opportunity is for us to be in the world but not be of it. Once you begin to put two and two together and you have found that power within to be who you truly are as God created you. Hey, sister, good to see you here. Once you have gained that courage, and you couple that, again, I don't have my charts here because I'm at my sister's, but once you gain courage, you now are leaving egoic pride and moving into godly pride, meaning that you recognize that you are the light of God, and by gosh, you're going to shine it. And with courage, you don't care who gets offended by you being loving. You just know that being loving feels way better. And when you then know that you're under no laws but God's, and then you go to lesson 77 and you practice recognizing that you're entitled to miracles, it is simply because of exactly what it says in here. So last week we looked at paragraphs 1 and 2. So I'm going to highlight what we looked at in paragraph 1 and 2, and then we're going to start paragraph 3, and we're going to tie that to what is happening in the world, because one of the most important things that is taking place right now in this bifurcation, meaning in this great awakening, is that because we are beings of free will, either you're going to pick because you have to choose. Why? Because as I said earlier, this is the planet of contrast. If you don't like contrast, don't incarnate on this planet. This planet is one of the lowest planets in frequency, but one of the highest planets in lessons, in opportunities to claim who you are. So this process is so simple. Train your mind by opening your mind to these other ideas. Allow these ideas to activate feelings, emotions in you. Everybody that has read the Course in Miracles that I have a conversation with tells me that they have two experiences, and those are the only two. And I'll tell you why those are the only two. One, they go, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. It feels right. There's something about this that feels right. I don't understand what it's saying. Some of the stuff that it says is like crazy, blows my mind, but it feels right. I've got to stick with this because it feels right. And by the way, the lady who channeled this material, her name is Helen Schuckman. She received this information like 60, 70 years ago. When interviewed repeatedly or asked repeatedly what she thought of the Course, this is what she said. I know it's true, but I don't believe it. Listen to that statement. I know it's true. She felt the truth. She felt God, Jesus speaking through her. She knew that what she was writing was true, but she couldn't believe it because the ego was still there. So just because you read the truth doesn't mean that your walk and your talk are congruent. It takes time. So the other thing that happens to people is that they'll come to the Course in Miracles and they read it and they go, this is pure gibberish, and put it away. Something repels them from it. I probably have had, of the thousands of people that I've probably worked with, I probably have had equal half of them who say, I needed a teacher, I needed some help because I know this is so powerful, but I just don't quite understand it, which makes perfect sense. Our mind is trained with so many things that make some of the language here be like, what? Because the egoic world has inverted everything that God has taught. So sometimes we need somebody to help us rewrite that, correct it, bring it back into a way that it makes sense. And then you see it and you cannot unsee it because it's like glaringly opposite of the world that the ego has made. Then those who say, no, this is not for me, it's because vibrationally, this is where we have to understand everything is based on resonance, because we're energy. Vibrationally, those who are repelled are not ready for it. And of course, they may bash the course or say whatever they want to say about the course. That's why I don't care if anybody says anything negative about me. Go to my Facebook page. I get called all kinds of things. Recently, I was told, Laina, you have gone to the dark side because I'm standing for transparency in government, because as within, so without. If I'm transparent about what's in here, because I've released everything that caused guilt and shame, you can only have guilt and shame if you have secrets. If you don't have secrets, there's no frequency of guilt and shame. So I want the outer world to be a reflection of me. So I am being what I want to see in the world. I am the change I want to see in the world, which is I put everything out there. If I'm thinking it or if I'm experiencing, I put it out there. I don't care what somebody thinks about it. I'm just following the impulse that comes from within because I listen to God within. So those who think that I'm gone to the dark side are only projecting what is dark within them because that's the way the game works. But I'm not going to judge them because I've been there too. If anything, I'm just excited that God used me to bring into somebody's awareness, maybe an idea that they may not be ready for it. A lot of people put the Course in Miracles down. They're not ready for it, but the seed was planted. Because some of those same people, obviously, I don't know all of them, but some of those people have come to me and said, I've had the Course in Miracles on my shelves for 20 years. And I could not, I cannot work with it 20 years ago. I thought I couldn't see the word God. I couldn't read about Holy Spirit. It was too Catholic for me. And it just activated things that I wasn't ready for. But today I'm ready. So that's what I get. People who know, okay, let's dive into this. And people who go, I couldn't do it before, but I think I need some help. Will you help me? Fabulous. Those are beings who are ready to really open up to what is there. And when you truly understand it, and then you're willing to practice it, then you realize why it is that you're entitled to miracles. But first, you must understand the laws that are God's because they apply to everybody. So in the last session, which was episode 182, and all of my episodes you can see them on my YouTube channel. There's 182 of them. So I've been doing these weekly calls for many years. I don't know the math there. What, 4 years, 5 years? No, maybe not 5. So in last week's, and this bears repeating because it's just so important, we looked at that we are entitled to the miracles because of what we are. And then it tells us that we can't receive we receive the miracles because of what God is. So there's a relationship there. Miracles are only possible because of what we are and what God is. And you will offer the miracles because you are one with God. We can only extend those miracles, meaning the love that goes out to the world, that light that we allow to flow when we remove the barriers. And the barriers to that light flowing, to that love flowing, are the beliefs that tell us either they don't deserve my love or they don't deserve my knowledge because I'm superior or I'm inferior. Both work just as the same to block light, to block extending. So when we realize through training our mind, through a lot of reading, through a lot of experiences, through a lot of workshops, through a lot of healing, that we are one with all that is, to block love from another is to block love from self, because first you must not be able to feel it. You block that love inside of you. It's already there. You're just blocking it because of your guilt or your shame or your anger, you are projecting a judgment outside of you. So I'm not going to give you my love because I, you don't deserve my love, but who's not feeling it? Because if you're feeling love, you're going to extend love. So our minds have been trained that blocking love somehow is good for us. But that's the very thing that leads us to aging, to sickness, to pain and suffering, because we don't understand God's laws. God's laws, and well, we're going to read it right here, is we're here to offer those miracles because we are God expressing itself to extend the kingdom. Each one of us, but each one of us is God expressing itself uniquely as something that is different, because we are here to express all possibilities, and we're barely scratching the surface of what's possible. We're just one tiny little planet in a massive in the massive cosmos. So we've got to do our work here so that we can begin to get comfortable with that we're part of something grand and vast. But we can't get to that until we start loving ourselves and see how grand and vast we are. And we got to go inside and feel the vastness of all this darkness that we have accepted as true. And as we heal it by shining the light of truth on it and shining the frequency of love on it through forgiveness and acceptance, we begin to change our inner world. And what happens, as it says in here, then we can offer the miracle because of we are one with God. As I said in the beginning, if God is love, if God is intelligence, if God is, like, let's say, the source from where the light emanates, like the sun, as an example, then we are that same light. We are a beam of that light. We are an extension of that love. We're an extension of that intelligence. So our mind has to be trained to accept the truth of who we are so we can tap in to more of that intelligence. And that intelligence is creative. It is constantly creating something new. It doesn't stop to repeat things unless the ego's in charge. Well, God doesn't have to repeat anything because it's infinite. There's so much that can still get created. But we are in repetition mode because our minds have been trained into doing the same thing over and over and over again, staying hopeful for a different result, but never changing anything. I can tell you, that's how I lived my life. I kept doing the same thing, but I did not know I was doing the same thing. Just because I dated a different person and they had a different face, I thought I was doing things differently. I was just repeating the same behaviors that I learned from my parents about how to be in relationships because I did not know any different. And I certainly wasn't going to question it because I'm not wrong, you are. So it takes an incredible amount of courage, an incredible amount of willingness. Well, actually, a little bit of willingness. The Course in Miracles is really clear. A little desire to look at things differently is all it takes to begin to crack that mind open. Again, go look at anything out there and you will see so much righteousness, an unwillingness to hear another perspective. Not only do we see it with religion, this God is the only God and not that God, and this religion is the right one and that's the wrong one, so we're going to kill you if you don't listen. Then we just witnessed it 4 years ago, the medical world, the whole vaccine thing. This side is right, that side is wrong, and my side is the only right side, and I rather not see you. You know, whatever. I will not come to Thanksgiving with you. You know, if you die, but I'm not coming because I'm not going to let you infect me. Oh my gosh, we took sides. Then we see it with the political system. There's this political party and that political party. This one's right, that one's wrong. There's these two football teams going to, you know, Super Bowl. This is the right football team. That's the wrong football team. Through contrast, we were supposed to learn what is it that we're doing that we prefer and don't prefer. We weren't supposed to be killing each other because we didn't agree with each other or turning our backs on each other. We are here to bring the light to the world. This is why Course in Miracles tells us that it is going to take time to undo what was created over time. When I first read that line, I was like, what the fuck does this say? And then I went, oh my gosh, I get it. I've got to go backwards in time to look at how I got conditioned, go back to the beginning from when I was born. And as many of you all know, that's when I experience my first sense of disappointment to others because I was not the boy my dad wanted. So I had to go back to the beginning. Was I wanted? What happened here? So that I can question my thoughts and begin the process of unraveling what took time to get created. And it's taken me time. It didn't happen overnight. I have been using time these last 24 years of my life to undo what took 40 plus years to create. So I have become patient. It takes patience to unravel things. Well, guess what? In the outer world, in the political world, it takes time to unravel what has happened over time. And when people are so quick to judge each other by what's happening out here and are not looking at the history of it, it just shows, it shows simple ignorance and egoic righteousness. And when you're ignorant of the truth, as the Course in Miracles says, you're arrogant because then you have to defend your position that doesn't allow for this to be a possibility. So you have to be righteous with what you know. And what is so funny is that when people are defending their position, if you notice, they're using attack thoughts. They're using, they're attacking others. But in the Course, I can't remember the lesson number, maybe 26, but don't quote me on that. It tells us that our attack thoughts are attacking our invulnerability. Every time I'm out there judging somebody else and you're wrong and you're wrong and you're wrong, I'm right, we're attacking our invulnerability. Our invulnerability means that I am strong enough and powerful enough that you can say whatever you want to say, and I don't have to feel like it's attacking me. That's when we understand one of the other lessons that is crucial in the Course is in my defenselessness, my safety lies. When you know God's laws, you don't have to defend them. They become obvious on their own, but they only become obvious to those, as Jesus said, that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. We don't need to go out there and wake anybody up. Just think about how rude it would be if we took a stick and we went around the neighborhood every morning and we started beating people to wake up out of their bed when they're not ready. So we need to learn how to respect people. They wake up when they wake up because they have free will and they get to choose when they're done with the suffering. Just as if we are honest, raise your hand. Didn't you suffer for a long time before you were ready to stop suffering? I did. And I only did that because I needed to be right about my suffering. Oh, they did this to me. Because that's how the ego maintains its position in righteousness. It's in the blaming game. And we cannot give up the blame game until we're ready to accept how truly powerful we are. And what happens when we accept how truly powerful we are? And for this, you would have to go to lessons 31 and 32. I think it's 31 and 32. Maybe it's 32 and 33. Yeah, 31 and 32. 31 says, I am not the victim of the world I see. The next lesson right after that, it says, which is beautiful, I have invented the world I see. So if I'm not a victim of it and I invented it, then the world that I've invented that supports my being a victim, I can't keep going to that world that I invented out there to support me in healing. I've got to first acknowledge I'm not a victim of the world I see. And when you acknowledge that you're not a victim of the world you see, then you need to find out, well, what am I? This course trains our mind to remember who we are. When you remember who you are and you know you're the one who's invented the world you see, now you want to project out there what is in you. And you don't even have to want to do it. You just naturally do it. Because to be anything other than a victim, it is, well, if being a victim caused my suffering and not being a victim causes my joy, my peace, what is the opposite of that? Well, the opposite of a victim is somebody who's free. You're free. You're not beholden to what other people did or back then or whatever, because you have used time to go back in time and say, Mom, I forgive you. Dad, I forgive you. Uncle, I forgive you. Boss, husband, first boyfriend that dumped me, first girlfriend that left me. You go back in time And you take however much time it takes to do that, because we have to build our strength and our trust in these truths little by little. You cannot just jump in and get it all done at one time. So we little by little do this work, and we get to where we get when we're ready to be there. But when we arrive, then our work, because it's natural, is to extend the kingdom. Because when we extend the kingdom, well, hello, welcome, birthday girl. Good to see you there. When we are extending the kingdom, it feels so good. And then you feel so good. You only want to be that good feeling self out there in the world because it makes sense. So when we continue here, that we offer the miracles because we are one with God and we're one with all that is, and we love our neighbors because we love ourselves. And didn't Jesus tell us that? Give us two laws: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And actually, it's all one law because we're all one anyways. So when you love yourself, you cannot help but love your neighbor, because to hate on your neighbor, you have to shrink. You have to then lie about what we are. And once you become honest, you don't lie to yourself a whole lot after that. Maybe a little bit for a little while, but then you realize, oh, that feels so yucky. It's like that saying that says, when we're accusing somebody else, and we're judging them and we get all righteous, it's like taking poison, expecting them to die. Isn't that stupid? You take the poison and you want them to die? When you realize that it feels really good to love and to be peaceful and to forgive, you're not going to take poison. You're going to remain poised, if anything. You're going to remain poised and clear. If you're not a body, you're free. Come do whatever you want to do to me. You can bash my character. I'm not that. I will always remain as God created me. It took me 40 years to figure that, longer than that, because really it's in the last 10 years that has become my reality, my lived and practiced reality, more and more and more each day. And I'm telling you, it just strengthens. It feels more like the truth of who I am with every single step that I take in not caring what other people think, and then forgiving myself if I do get concerned for a little bit. I like to forgive myself. Laina, forgive yourself for forgetting that you're not what they think of you. You are what God created you to be. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I got to move into that place of owning what I am. So then it tells us still in the first paragraph that salvation is super simple. All you need to do is accept God's laws and then embody them. This journey is a multiple step journey. First, we have to become aware of these truths. Then we have to accept that we weren't living by them. That's part of beginning to cultivate honesty. Then we've got to practice them. That's why there's lessons with practices every day. After you practice them, you will begin to feel the comfort of embodying them. Once you embody them, you're fully realized, because, a couple of things. You make God's laws real in your mind, then you walk as the embodiment of those truths, and then you realize that it's way funner and easier to live life from a state of truth. That's how you experience the peace that passes all understanding, because there's no fear. What are you afraid of? Once you do this work, what are you going to be afraid of? Somebody calling you names, nana, boo boo. Who cares what they call you? You're grounded in the truth of who you are, and all you can do, if you're me, you kind of laugh at it. I used to laugh, at their faces before. Now it's like, oh, let me be a little more compassionate. I just laugh inside, because they don't know what they're doing. If they knew what they were doing, they couldn't do that. Because I know they're hurting. So it tells us then, how simple is salvation? Know who you are, because the next one says it is merely a statement of your true identity. Once you know what you are, then you know you are ensured, assured, whatever word you want to use, that you are okay, because it is God's law. Then we move into paragraph number 3, and it says, today we will claim the miracles which are your right. Once you know that it is your right to be happy, it is your right to be free, you can see very quickly those who are attempting to make you suffer, those who want to call you names or discredit you to make you suffer. And then it becomes really clear who is attempting to take your God-given rights, which include freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of freedom. So let me read this again. Today we will claim the miracles which are your right, since they belong to you. God gave each and every one of us. So again, Natalia, you just joined us a little late. We're in lesson 77, and I am reading from paragraph number 3 now. So and this is universal for everybody, as you do your internal work, as you completely liberate yourself within, you want liberation for all beings without. Why? Because you are one with them and you want them to have what you have, and you can't help but be what you are. So you want consistency. What is consistency? Honesty. You know that you're in this world, but you're not of it. But while you're in this world, our work is to make this world become the change that we want to see in the world. Not by beating people up to wake up, not by beating people up who've done things wrongly, because that's what forgiveness is for. You forgive them, they know not what they were doing. But you become part of the change you want to see in the world when you can acknowledge that God's laws are not being used, especially when they are not being used in a country where they are guaranteed by our constitutional rights. Because when you look at the US Constitution, it is clear to me that there are parts of that are channeled, especially the part that says all men are created equal. Of course, it left out women, but it really means all beings. And that means animals too, to me, means everything, means the planet. All that God created is created equal, endowed with the same inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I've done several chats on just that. Maybe I'll do it again 4th of July. It seems like that's usually when I do that chat. So when you get clear that you have eternal life, as in the Constitution, you are life, liberty, you're free. You have total free will. So you're eternal with free will. And Course in Miracles says that we have one purpose, and that's to be happy. Life, liberty, and happiness in the Constitution, protected by God, and because we're endowed with it by God. Constitution says that is to protect our rights. Then you move to the other side. Okay, I'm eternal. You look at laws, gods, I'm eternal. Don't worry about what anybody thinks about me. That's why we revere people like Martin Luther King Jr. We revere people like Kennedy. We revere Jesus. Why? Because they decided that they would put themselves in a risky position because, give me liberty or give me death. They were eternal beings, all teaching that we are here through the examples that they had to experience freedom in their own different ways. And then you recognize that you have free will. You can choose to learn the truth, or you can choose to not see it. You can choose to just protect your ego and be righteous and act like an 8-year-old, which is what I used to act like when I was so righteous. That's okay. You can do that. You can be against all the people who are trying to bring about transformation. Yes, you're allowed to block your own joy, happiness, and freedom, your own liberty and freedom. You're allowed to do that because you have free will. However, because more are waking up and being kind and practicing forgiveness and saying it's okay, go look at my Facebook wall again. People who call me names, I tell them it's okay. I don't mind. It's perfectly okay for you to have your opinion. I don't need to convince you of mine. If you don't like mine, it's okay. Thank you for sharing yours. Now I understand a little bit more about what you think. When you get to the place that you feel the oneness within you, that you know that we are all created equal, and you recognize that the only way you're going to remain at peace is if you live as peace, if you operate from that place, then you can clearly have the eyes to see and the ears to hear that this country is going through the same thing, not just the country, but the world. If you listen to any channeled material, you will understand that we have been systematically guided for millennia with channeled information, giving us hints. A lot of it, you can find it in the Bible, giving us hints about what happens when we listen to the voice of the ego, which in some places they call it Lucifer, they call it Satan. That's the way I've come to understand it. And when you can see that to listen to that which tells you that you are less than, that you don't deserve as much, or that you should work really hard for somebody else, or that all you are is, a slave, or that your color keeps you from being equal, or that your gender keeps you from being equal, you realize it's bullshit. It's BS. It's a belief system that supports one side and not all beings. And when you begin to see that our government has been operating, supporting one side and not some, but not others, you can begin to see that politics has been a game. I call it pendulum politics. The pendulum swings from the left to the right, from this one to that one. And they cannot see if you're riding that pendulum and you like, this is your side and that's it. If you don't recognize the work that is required to free yourself, you cannot see that the world is actually in the process of freeing itself from old conditioning. And guess what? This country is leading the way. And it is leading the way because we have some really courageous people. And this is where so many of my spiritual friends, I cannot believe that you would support Trump, but I don't support Trump because I have said that I agree with everything he does. I just vibrationally am attuned to the things that are happening. And he has the pride, which is needed, to move up, to have the courage, which is needed, to want to protect the Constitution that asserts life, liberty, and the pursuit of freedom. If you listen, the pursuit of happiness, if you listen, really, truly listen to what he is saying, you will see that common thread throughout the message. So I'm super excited because the world that I want to see is being created. Is he going to be here longer than the next few years? No, like none of us is going to be. But there are other beings who are coming in who needed to have the old dismantled for the new to have a platform to get created. I could not have changed my entire thought system if I didn't dismantle the old one. And different teachers helped me create the foundation for where I'm at. It took many psychological books to help me see what was going on inside of me. Then it took books about religion and how it was created. And I read books about politics and I read books about the medical system. All of those teachers helped me dismantle the stories that over time I had built that allowed me to give my power outside of myself. So I was creating based on misinformation. And it wasn't until I had the courage and the willingness to come inside and question everything that I believed that I was able to free myself from those low vibrating beliefs. And now I can see those who resonate with higher frequencies because instead of bashing what I don't know or trying to protect my side or the other, which by the way, I don't play political sides at all. I'm staying down the middle. I don't do pendulum things. I used to do that with my ego before. Now I just stay in the middle way. And in the middle way, I feel my way. I feel the vibration. I realize we're in the world with a bunch of worldly people and there is ego involved. My ego's still here. Just I contain my ego. I can tell my ego, no, I'm not going to listen to you. But most people don't know that they can do that because they think they are their ego. They think their thoughts are who they are. I know my thoughts are not who I am. I am a vessel of light that has thoughts and I need to sort them. Are these right thoughts or wrong thoughts, as the Course called them? Are these thoughts with God or thoughts with the ego? And I sort those thoughts before I take any kind of action or before I speak what comes out of me for the most part. Not always. I still have lots of opportunities to forgive myself for calling somebody a name or something. Yes, that still happens. But then I laugh about it because, it's just part of the game. So your paragraph 3. So we're claiming the miracle because it is our right. And what is a miracle? Very important question. A miracle It is stated throughout the Course in Miracles over and over again in a bazillion ways. There's even a list at the beginning that explains what a miracle is, and it gives you all the permutations possible. A miracle is a shift in perception. In English speak, it's a change of mind. You can change your mind. You don't want to be Republican, you can be Democrat. It's okay. But then we attack those people who change their minds. But that's a sign of maturity when you change your mind. A miracle is a decision to shift from fear to love. You love yourself enough to not go around blocked. A miracle is a shift from ego running your life to God running your life. And when I began to let God run my life, it was only after I struggled with giving my power to God, because I had those old religious conditions. I'm going to give my power to a God that turns people into, salt pillars. I'm going to give my power away. I just got my power back and now I got to give it away. Well, what I realized is yes and no. It seems like we're giving it to God, but what we're really doing it is aligning with God. It's already in us. We're just really owning who we are. Why? Because what we are is an expression of God. I'm just accepting I'm an expression. So now I let the source inform me. The source of all knowing is where I go to for my information now. That's my final stop. I hear things out here and I go here. God, how does this feel? Is this true? And I feel the frequency of it. I feel the vibration of it. Is it loving? Is it freeing? Does it acknowledge providing life, liberty, and happiness? Does it do those things? Because that's what the Course in Miracles says. Then I align with it and I know it's true. So I used to be a know-it-all. It's what allowed my ego to always be right until I humbled myself enough. I got off especially when I knew everything about spirituality, once I got off my spiritual pedestal and I dropped down like a hot potato to the ground and it shattered that illusion, I realized I don't need to know it all. As a matter of fact, I like being wrong because that means I'm just expanding my awareness. I don't need to know it all because I am connected to the source of all knowing. If I need to check in, I am very confident that I can go to that source and I will get exactly what I need in that moment. I trust that that is where I go to sort everything out, bypassing my ego long ago because I don't need to be right and I don't know it all. So isn't it logical then? You start putting two and two together, you go to the source that knows everything. And that source does not judge anything. It doesn't judge anything because you're going to the source that created all that is. That's what the journey of waking up is all about, is allowing ourselves to go to the consciousness that judges nothing but knows everything. That is the only way you can change anything, is to go to that source that knows everything. And then it gives you the right information at the right time that fits into what is expanding. Absolutely beautiful. So, sentence number 2, you have been promised full release from the world you made. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know, that we've been promised full release from the world the ego made? It's like some of these people who are being let out of jail that have been convicted wrongly, and they hear, you have been promised full release from the egoic lies and misinformation that put you in jail. We all know lots of people have been put in jail simply because they disagreed with the establishment. And we are in the process of changing that, because when you bring transparency, you also bring an opportunity to see the truth. And when you see the truth, you cannot help but continue to do things that hurt others. You are extending the love of God to the others. Why? Because you start loving your neighbors like yourself. So to me, this release from our egoic prison is no different. As within, so without. Then we must release everybody who has been wrongly convicted. 2 and 2 go together. It just makes sense. So you have been assured that the kingdom of God is within you and can never be lost. Man, that line, oh, wow. I had spent my entire life thinking I was lost, thinking I got to do everything all by myself, thinking that I had to go work really hard to get to God on that cloud to someday, maybe if I go to heaven. But then the church told me I couldn't go to heaven because I'm a sinner. The obstacles, the blocks to the light were there. All those cardboards were laid perfectly in my way over lifetimes to make sure that I thought I was lost and would spend my life seeking. Then, thanks to A Course in Miracles, thanks to training my mind and reading the truth of who I am, which is so simple, salvation is very simple, I freed myself from the insanity of doing the same thing, expecting a different result, listening to my ego and expecting things to change. That's when I realized I am not a seeker anymore. I'm not spiritual anymore. I gave that up. And then I began the practice of being what God created me to be, being one with God so that I could create like God. And God creates only with love. God creates only to expand the kingdom, to create opportunities, to extend possibilities. And once I made that decision that I was not lost, then I was found. Yeah, I was lost and now I'm found. All those sayings, they all make perfect sense. And that is when I began to acknowledge that the Course in Miracles tells me what someone who is found is like. How do I be that? There are 10 characteristics to a teacher of God. If you follow those characteristics, if you trust only God's laws, and there are steps to do that. It tells you exactly, you got to go through the discomfort, many periods, and they could take lifetimes. But right now we're being facilitated, we're being supported in the breaking down of these things a lot faster. And you trust, and then you are honest, and then you are defenseless. You don't defend yourself. If you are open-minded, if you are tolerant and not judging, if you experience, you will learn patience, you become gentle, you become generous, you become joyful. I mean, only the truly joyful can afford to be all of those things. Then you're found. Then you have found what you are. And now you just have to be it, because that is an important part of this work. You have to know it and embody it. When we're all spiritualized or religiousized, I don't know if that's a word or not, and you're defending your position, it could have a lot of beautiful things in it. Spiritual people post all kinds of spiritual things, but do they walk the talk? Religious people post all kinds of beautiful things that Jesus did, but do they walk the talk? That is when you begin to see that we are separating. We're in a time right now where the wheat and the chaff are being separated. All that means is that which is useful for the expansion of the kingdom is going to go in one direction, and that which is not useful for the kingdom, the expansion of the kingdom is still useful, is going to go in this direction. Watch the world bifurcate more and more. You're going to see opportunities for groups who want to live by these laws here and groups who want to live by God's laws here. It is happening. It's happening right before our eyes if you have the eyes to see. Because those who know who they are entitled to miracles, and they have had the courage. Many have had the courage, and they are moving in that direction and co-creating that experience, because like attracts like. Vibrationally, they're coming together, and they don't care what anybody thinks about them. They are doing what needs to be done. Why? Because they're doing it for the greater good. Listen to what people say, and you will see, is ego selfishness there, or are we operating for the greater good? It's so easy to hear, but you have to have the ears to hear it. Meaning you can't have your selfish, egoic needs. Who's attacking my what I need? Who's attacking my social security? Who's attacking my this? If you're not in that childlike state of self-protection, you are in a mature state of listening, embodying characteristics of a teacher of God. And a teacher of God is somebody who shows what God is through their example. You don't have to go teach like I do and take out the charts and show. You are teaching because you're helping other people become aware of things that maybe they did not know or they just need be reminded of. Then he goes on to say in sentence 4, we ask no more than what belongs to us in truth. Today, however, we will also make sure that we will not content ourselves with less. Those two lines are powerful. What belongs to you? The recognition of your equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You were endowed with those inalienable rights. Nobody that is attempting to block any of that, you should let stand in your way, because you were given that. And it says, do not content yourself with less. I will not content myself with a world that greed and selfishness has become normal, that haves and have-nots has been normal. I will not content myself with that, because that's not the world I'm leaving for my children. I am in this world not to be a doormat. I am in this world to take very deliberate actions. First, I take them within myself. I know who I am, and I'm not going to accept that I am less than that, but I don't need to defend that to anybody else, because it's an internal feeling. It's an internal knowingness. Those who are looking for that, who are operating at that frequency, they're attracted to me. Those who are not cannot be attracted to me in a resonance world, in a world that operates with resonance. I will not take what doesn't belong to me. Cheating, stealing, all those things end when you move into honesty. But what you do recognize is that you are the creator of your reality, and we are going to create with love, period. Martin Luther King gave his life to ensure that people, it was going to remain, if he did nothing more than put those quotes into the consciousness of humanity. He planted the seeds that all of us can quote. Do not judge people by the color of their skin, rather judge by the content of their character. Course in Miracles is helping us change the content of our mind, change what you're thinking. Because when you change what you're thinking, you cannot help but, even if it takes time, you cannot help but be that. We are in exciting times, friends. We are in exciting times, and the outside world is shifting to match the inside world of many of us who have been holding the truth. Jesus did this 2,000 years ago. He stood at the temple and threw the tables, turned over the tables of the money changers. The money changers right now, meaning those with financial privileges, those tables are turning. Pay attention to the money system. We are in the process of massive wealth transfers, but it is only going to be experienced by those with eyes to see and the ears to hear. Yes, some greedy people will be on that bandwagon, and that's okay. That's okay, because it's just happening. And that's okay. It's not our job to judge any of that. But if you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, if you're curious, if you're open-minded, if you are trusting, if you get that nudge and you read whatever you're reading about these new systems and you feel peace because you said, God, what would you have me do? You move out of the ego deciding for you and you deliberately listen to God. You are going to be guided to do the things that are going to be right for you. Don't worry about anybody else. You're not here to wake up anybody else. You're not here to save anybody else. You are here to wake up and be the light of the world. And once you know what you are, you will not settle for any less than is yours. The time of thinking, oh, I'm spiritual, I shouldn't have money, thinking I'm spiritual, I shouldn't have that, those days are over, because God wants you to enjoy whatever it is that you want. But what's happening is we're going to move out of being a doormat, or in some cases a martyr, or being greedy and selfish. We're moving into the middle way. And the middle way means that when you have aligned with God and you are under no laws but God's, you are entitled to the miracle of your life experiences being exactly as you desire them to be, because the whole desires that have been placed in you is how God experiences expansion. God desires to write a book through you. God can desire to have a healing center through you. God can desire to open up a business. God can desire all of our desires that are not selfish. This is the Buddha was right. Desires are the problem, but it's the ego's desire because they're all about me. But God's desires are all about serving the greater good of all. And many of us are being activated with desires to help humanity. And it doesn't matter if they're big or small. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the one that is undoing the oppression around the world. And you don't have to become a president. You don't even have to become a teacher of this. But if you hold in your consciousness the desire for humanity to experience life, liberty, and happiness, you are literally contributing to the creation of that world. Because the world of lies, of oppression, of just selfishness, they're ending. And you're holding the frequency of realizing that we've all been created equal, are actually doing a lot for the shift in consciousness that humanity is going through. But your greatest work starts within. Know yourself, and then to your own self be true. We have had lots of teachers, lots of places, and if you can find the truth in all of it, you will see that it is all the same. Thank you all so much for being here. And if anybody has a comment or a question, unmute yourselves. Otherwise, if you want to hear past episodes, go to my YouTube channel. And if you want to hear more of this, come back next week. I do this pretty much every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And if no one has any comments, then we can say goodbye. No?
No, let me just say something.
Hey, brother.
As enjoyable as always to listen to you. Just channel that. It's really fun to listen to. And Natalia, happy birthday.
Yes, sweet birthday girl.
And that's all I gotta say.
That's all you have to say. Well, that's a lot. Just spreading love. Thank you so much. And if this means something to you, share it. And if not, just keep coming back. Love you all.
Thank
Bye.
you very much, Mike and Laina, everybody. Mwah.
Happy
Love
birthday. Bye-bye.